Hello and welcome back to the Pursuing Freedom podcast. If it's your first time here, welcome aboard, buckle up. I've got a great show in store for you. And for those repeat offenders, I love having you back here to tune in. We've got an interview today with the amazing Ruth Laskowski. And Ruth has been doing it all in real estate. She got into real estate in 2019 and into the sales lane and quickly found herself into leadership, which is amazing because that happened within a year. And she has an incredible track record for initially helping agents get their business off the ground and then later scaling, team building, and everything in between. She's got an incredible story for us, and I'm thrilled to have her here on the show. I don't even know how we found each other. I think I was maybe cyber stalking her on Instagram and just loved what her content was about. I was like, I think I need to know you. Can we meet, please? So I'm thrilled that she's taken the time to share her story with us today. And with no further ado, Ruth, if you could give us a little backstory about, number one, how'd you find your way into this crazy industry? And then how did your journey evolve so quickly into where you are now, coaching agents and running a business called Profits? It's pretty fascinating.
Thanks. And thank you, Erin, for that intro. Wow. My background is actually in education. I'm a classical musician by trade. So I've been playing flute and piano since I was about 12 years old, and quickly actually found myself accepting my professors' younger students when I was about 16. So I've been in that coaching, teaching, mentoring kind of place in life for many, many, many years. So my undergraduate degree is in music education. And I did that here in Virginia, and I studied abroad in Europe, and I toured and played and had a great time doing all of that. Came back to the area, taught privately, taught publicly, and I had some private studios for flute and piano and a few other instruments. Then I pursued a master's degree in higher education. So my master's is in educational leadership, teaching adults how to teach. So that's kind of where the background in that leadership role kind of came into play. So I was doing that, working in low performing school districts, creating and starting fine art programs for underprivileged children. That's the backstory. And then after a little over 13 years of doing that, I turned to my husband and I just said, I want something more. I could feel that I feel something in me that I need to be doing something more where I can reach more people. And I said, I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to go back and do a PhD. I had some professor friends of mine that were saying, just go ahead and do the PhD. Let's go ahead and do it. And I just didn't want to do it. In the process of all of that, real estate entered because my husband had bought a foreclosed property and we decided we would flip it. That's where real estate came into play. Was we were rehabbing this house and he kept saying to me, I think you can do this. I think you should do real estate. And I kept saying, absolutely not. I don't want to be in sales. I'm not salesy and I don't want to do it. So we went through that whole process. We made a wonderful profit on the sale of that property. And then slowly but surely, he just kind of kept prompting me, and a lot of other things in my life were kind of lining up in that direction. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the classes. If I pass, I'll just go ahead and get the license and I'll go into real estate. So yeah, that's what I did. I was kind of on a whim. I took the classes. I have an uncle who was a very successful real estate agent for many, many years. I reached out to him and I said, this is how little I knew about real estate. I said, what is the best real estate school I can go to? I didn't realize you could just go online. So he gave me a few pointers and he said, now, if you want to build a really fantastic business, this is what you need to do. So he gave me a couple of books and a couple of pointers, and he became a bit of a mentor in my life. And that's where it started. In 2019, I got my license, had my license for about 6 months, and the pandemic hit. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because everything shut down. I got a listing. I'll never forget my first listing. I don't think anyone does. It was a house that had been on and off the market for 7 consecutive years. And I called it the unsellable house, and the owners believed the same. And so they said, if you can sell it, that's great. And I said, okay. And this is in, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the summer of 2020. By the way, prior to all of this, I had 26 people lined up to engage in real estate transactions starting in January within my first 6 months, right? Which is a lot if you realize the average sales for a real estate agent is maybe 4 sales per year. That's our national average. So I had 26 clients signed up, ready to go, paperwork ready, and we were going to do real estate that year. I'll never forget the phone calls as things started changing across the nation. People losing their jobs, their health was impacted, never mind, they were not going to be in a position to buy or sell that year. And slowly but surely, all of them did over the years that followed. But I just looked at my husband and I said, I don't know, I've destroyed myself. I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, I get this listing, I sell the unsellable house. And that was kind of where things started to change. And then shortly thereafter, I was asked to join the leadership team at the office I was working in.
Well, I have so many questions. I'm over here on pins and needles. Well, first of all, it's funny. Almost everyone, this podcast has been going since sometime in 2018. And I've got to find what the percentage of people that fell into real estate is versus like, yeah, I knew I wanted to be a realtor when I was in high school or when I was a kid, or, obviously there's a handful whose parents were in real estate, but most of them actually would say that they resisted the call to real estate for many years before they succumbed to it. And but it's also such a natural path on the heels of anything with education. And, thank you for acknowledging the part about you saying, I can't do that because I'm not salesy. I remember early on in my career just feeling like, do I belong in this industry? Because I am not salesy, and the training they're giving me is like, it's a hard pass for me. It's no. But also as a former educator, once you figure out that you can actually grow your business from a place of education, it's actually quite easy. But not that easy. It's still not that easy. So this is what I want to jump to is, how the heck did you have 26 clients lined up within months of getting your license? I mean, can you bring us behind the curtain of the advice that your uncle was giving you? I mean, what was his backstory? Just give us a little bit, because somebody here listening is like, I'd like that right now, please.
Okay, so the advice he gave me, I asked after I learned there was no #1 real estate school. Like, I'm thinking I want to go to the Harvard of real estate schools, and there's no such thing. Okay. So then I'm like, okay, and this is my research background. I said, okay, then give me, like, what should I read? What do I need to know to learn how to build a big business? Because I had a lot of reasons why I wanted to get into real estate. And this is where this comes into play. So he said, you need to read this book. It's called The One Thing by Jay Papasan and Gary Keller. I said, that doesn't sound like it's about real estate. And he says, no, you need to read that book. And then you can read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And he gave me like a couple of like books to read. But that one was the first book that he said you need to read. So Erin, I kid you not, I read that book 3 consecutive times in a row in my first year in real estate. The main question of the book is, what do I need to do such that by doing it, everything else is either it's easy or unnecessary? And I may have butchered the quote on that a little bit, but that's the main core concept of that book. So you need to focus on your one thing. And it has several different analogies of knocking down dominoes. There's a lot of little components in that book. So I used that book not just to build the business, but I used it in my life through several other things that I was going through at the time, several different personal things, several things I was working on with family. And that was the spark. That was the spark. So I read that book, and I'm with Keller Williams, which is a fantastic real estate company. It is the largest international real estate company in the world by agent counts, and more agents choose that company than any other real estate company. And I think honestly, it's because of the foundation in education. So there's a seminar or a series, it's called Bold, written by Diana Kokoska, and it's an 8-week series. Now, this is like real estate on steroids. And I highly suggest it for anyone, but if you know nothing and you're already a go-getter, I mean, I jumped in with like head first, as hard as I could. So there were several things in there that are incredibly challenging behind mindset, scarcity versus abundance mindset, how you communicate with people, your internal financial thermostat. There were things in there about how you connect and then stay in communication with your database, building a database, and it touched on all these different aspects of what you needed to do. Now, I would highly suggest you take it more than one time, but I took it one time, and that's how I got my 26, because the fear of failure was so strong. And I went from where I was in music, like I had my own studios. I was traveling the world. I was competing at the international level. So my concept of competition was like so high. I was used to hearing no a lot, a lot. Moving that over into real estate, you're going to hear no a lot. That's part of the process. And you just kind of have to keep going. So that was, and then attaching it to your big why, which is all that book, The One Thing. Those were the two main things that I did within my first 6 months in real estate that really helped charge the trajectory of where I was going.
Okay, so I am obsessed with The One Thing and The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and Jay Papasan was on the podcast, episode 164. So if anybody needs to go and just get the cliff notes from the interview, but I want to dig into this a little bit. So I'm just curious, because when you're brand new and there's a million things you can do to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks, and you're following the plan of bold, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I just have to ask, what came up for you as the one thing when there's so many shiny objects? Like, what was the one thing such that everything else becomes unnecessary or easy?
Let me see if I can say it without getting emotional, because your one thing needs to be that big. My one thing was my family.
Okay. I love it.
I wanted to be able to have an impact in my family that could change their life.
I love that.
And I had one brother who he was, oh my goodness. And I don't want to share too much about his personal story, but he was very unfortunate medical situation. He almost died. It was like a medical fluke, an accident. And he was in a hospital for months, and we didn't think he was going to make it. And he was in grad school at the time, finishing his PhD in music. So I'm one of 7 children, and he and I were the only 2 that went professional in music. And he's younger than me by a couple of years. And so he incurred so much medical debt through that situation. He didn't feel that there was a purpose to life, because he just felt it was so overwhelming. And in my process of trying to figure out how can I help my brother, I also discovered real estate is one of the greatest wealth builders in our country. And so I thought, well, doggone it, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And so when you have a why, when you have a reason that is that big, when you can attach it to something that is so meaningful, and there's, I don't know, there's just so much meaning behind being able to be in a position. And that was just the beginning. That was just one of the first dominoes, you know, and I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, I'm going to go sell as many houses as I can. And I told him, I'm doing this, and I'm going to take a percentage of all of my sales, and we're going to knock out all your debt. We're going to do it. And he was like, you know, I don't know how we're going to do that. I mean, we are talking into the hundreds of thousands with debt, right? And I said, well, between this book that I read, I have a purpose. And then I read the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I said, did you know that there is a system? There is a system to becoming a millionaire. Did you know that you can choose that you want to do it, and you can do it? Like, it's not something that it's, you know, like, oh, I just wish I was a millionaire, you know, or, oh, I better buy a lottery ticket. No, there's actually like a method to making money, a lot of money, and helping a lot of people. You know, money is only good for the good that it can do. Money is opportunity. And when you start looking at it like that, and also learning how to dial up your financial thermostat, it just, I mean, like, it opens such a different world.
I love how you talk about dialing up the financial thermostat. I don't know if did you glean that from Secrets of the Millionaire Mind at all?
No, I think I heard that either in Bold, or there was a recent conference I went to with John Maxwell, Diana Kokoska, Mo Anderson. It's called the More Conference. She was saying it there. So.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, because for anyone listening that doesn't know what that analogy means, I got it from the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, but it just talks about how, like, we all have a limit to what we are striving to, which is limited by what we believe to be true. And that's like the thermostat in our house, where if the house gets cold, then the heat kicks on and brings it back up to the temperature you set it to, but it doesn't keep going. So for you to be able to exceed your own expectations, you got to dial up that thermostat to a higher level than you even believe to be possible or know how to get to. And then let the path unfold. Well, well, with a lot of action too. So let me ask you, all of this is amazing. And you're a coach, I'm a coach. And I always say to people, don't be an inspiration junkie, be an action junkie. Like, you're taking the time to listen to this podcast right now. You're going to get some nuggets from Ruth today. And you might feel really inspired by her story and do nothing, or you might feel inspired and take action. So you alluded early on that you struggled with the fear of being seen as salesy, and I did as well. And I remember hiring a coach right away. I shouldn't say right away. I waited until I fell flat on my face, and then I hired a coach, like 35 grand in credit card debt. And I just said, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes. And I kind of like muscled through out of desperation. I'm curious what your story looked like as it relates to, like, okay, you're going through this 8-week program. They're teaching you all the things. But here you are with this fear of being seen as salesy. And a lot of what they're telling me to do feels a little salesy. So how did you rewrite that narrative for yourself in order to become unleashed in that activity? Do you know what I mean?
I truly believe that I'm here to help you. And part of the helping process is teaching you, once I help you, it's teaching you then how to do it for yourself. I just wholeheartedly believe, like, if, when you do get that lead, that's my mission. And I mean, I can call every client, every agent I've worked with, and they can tell you too, like, it changed the trajectory of their life and their family story and their wealth story. So one of my cornerstones in all of this was the wealth building concept. And we're rich in a lot of things. So it's not just money. Like, we're rich in a lot of different things. And so it's meeting families where they are. Maybe they've rented forever and now they finally have equity and they have something that they can call their own. Maybe it's helping other agents and changing the path of their lives. So they're learning how to make money for their family, get out of debt. Their kids can take dance and sports and they don't have to choose. They, finally get the swimming pool that they wanted to get because dad did enough in sales this year. They finally take that vacation. A husband and wife finally celebrate their honeymoon. There's things like that where it's about the moments that you can help other people create in their lives. And that's what I wanted to do. And when you start believing in it like that, it's not salesy. So whether it's transactional and you're helping someone with an investment or purchasing or selling, you're teaching them the ownership process. You're teaching them when you sell a house, obviously you're going to profit something and then they're going to move on and buy another house, right? That's the very next thing that they do. But you're able to interact with them and teach them and show them how you can be of value to them in their lives. And hopefully your value proposition is more than just, I'm going to sell your house. Same with the buying process. Hopefully it's more than just a transactional relationship. Hopefully it's, here's the process of buying. This is what this looks like. This is what investing looks like. One of my key people that I love to work with are female business owners. And my goodness, like, if I could tell you the wealth stories behind that, it's really hard when you're a business owner to buy a house in the first place. It's really difficult. And then not only take it from that, but I've got one story right now where she just bought her second property within 3 years. So she's got her investment property and she's on to the second one. And the investment property is she's doubling her money on that one. It's things like that. When you get to be in a position to truly help people, it's not a sales pitch. So.
It's funny you talk about that because, like, early on, once I had some traction, I remember, number one, like, after buying my own house, being so excited to teach other people how much easier it is than you think to buy that house. And then as we kept our properties as investment properties and saw the passive income, I got so excited to tell people about what they could do too. And my hairdresser was a perfect example who, her income is pretty fixed to the hours that she has to work. And if she breaks her wrist, she makes zero money. You know what I mean? If she can't do hair, she can't make money. And if she ever wants to cut back on hours, she's cutting back on her income. So it's her passion. It's what she loves to do. And there are many careers out there that people choose that by default have a limitation on what they can earn from that particular trade or career, right? And so I started teaching her about real estate investing because I'm like, you should do this so that you can have additional income. And within, I don't know how many years, she had 5 properties. She and her husband ended up having 4 kids. Like, she was able to retire her husband from his career as a chef and like all these things. And I look back on that still to this day, all these years later, thinking to myself, it's fun to educate if you can find a purpose to be a value. Then you're not mustering up courage or digging deep for motivation to do these things, to go sell yourself as this person. You're just like unleashed on this purpose to serve others, where it's so much easier, and the flow of energy and activity comes naturally like a snowball. You can't help yourself. And so I love that you share your story there. So as you evolved into leadership, and now, I know you're helping teams and you're also helping agents, like, I can understand now by hearing you articulate so perfectly your passion for not only educating, but also understanding the mindset and the systems and everything else, why they would have called you into leadership so soon in your career. But can you talk us through a little bit of that journey and how it's gotten you to where you are today?
First, I was terrified to get out of sales and go into leadership, because in Keller Williams, in your leadership roles, some positions come with, you need to not be doing sales anymore. We'll put it that way. So I was a little bit concerned about that, but the opportunity path was just awesome. I became the director of education and technology for a brokerage in Virginia Beach. They had a little over 200 agents and a couple different locations. So we had a hub and then several spokes off the hub. I started out there and then took on one of our, we have a tech trainer position in Keller Williams. So I took on that position, and then I took on assistant team leader position as well. I was doing all of that, and I was helping agents, and I was recruiting agents, and I was educating agents. And eventually I just felt the call to kind of step back out of that and go into individual consulting and coaching. I did that for a little over 2.5 years. Loved it. It was a great job. I learned a lot. I made some great connections. And then, yeah, I transitioned into coaching and consulting, which is where the company Profits came from. Was there is a concept of productivity coaching. So we get people in production. You want them to be productive. But the telltale sign of a strong business is their profitability. It can look great on the outside. I think that's something that we often see in sales, is everything looks good and glossy on the outside. But if you pull back the curtain and you look into the books, are you actually profitable? It kind of goes back to like the red light, green light concept in the MREA book about how you structure your business as you grow. And I knew I didn't want to be in the red. I came up with this concept of profits, to look into companies and help make them profitable through coaching and developing systems and models around what they're doing, or what they don't have, to help them get more profitable. And it ties back into your mindset. It ties into just the simple structure. So when I'm working either in group coaching or with solo agents, we look at several different components of the business on how they're structuring it, what they're offering clients. It's like, if you've ever worked in a restaurant or have like kind of that retail experience, you've got that front of the house experience, which is for the consumer, and then the back of the house experience, which is where all the nuts and bolts and all that stuff is going on. So we look at both of those systems to make sure they're in alignment, so that everything's running smoothly. So we do that. I do that. And then also with teams, I offer the same concept, but on a higher level for teams.
Awesome. And are you still selling houses?
I am. Everyone asks me that. So wait, are you still in sales? Are you still in production? Yes, I am. I work mainly with my database. So legacy clients, referrals, people that I'm in relationship with. I work with those type of clients. I will take on new clients still, but I have been known, sometimes I have referral partners, and sometimes I'll refer if it takes too much focus off the coaching.
just out of curiosity, because you're wearing a lot of hats, and I'm sure, some people are listening and are also wearing a lot of hats. Do you
Yeah.
still apply systems to the business development side of your real estate business to keep that engine rolling and keep yourself visible?
It's mainly through text, phone call, email, and being present in the market centers. That's mainly how I stay in communication with people. Like I said, I do get a lot of referrals, whether it's from friends, family, church, charitable organizations that I've worked with. That's where the majority of the business and the referrals will come from. A lot of it, honestly, is word of mouth.
Well, and I don't know if what your experience with this is, and as you're coaching agents, but especially as you're starting to teach on things like systems and boundaries and having a plan and following the plan and stuff like that. And it feels so challenging for agents, lenders, other entrepreneurs too. Like as you're building a business, it's almost like you don't feel like you've earned the right to have boundaries if you're still you're just trying to get a deal or find some business. So it's almost harder to have systems. And then I always, if I have a group together, I'll point out, like, do you think you right now with 0 to 1 transactions under contract, you think it's easier or harder for you to create a plan now than this one over here who's got 8 under contract and her hair is on fire? And is it easier to put the systems in place later? But for someone like you who's wearing many hats, where you're like coaching and you're also lead generating and you're also running a profitable business and you're serving clients, it's a necessity. Like it's a necessity to simplify the system, right?
Yes. So I think that kind of ties back to, I grew up in a military household, like I said, with 7 children. And my dad in the military, one of his jobs was teaching flow charting, systems of efficiency. Because if you didn't, it would be utter chaos. And all 7 of us went to college. Most of us pursued masters, and like I said, my brother did his PhD. Almost all of us have traveled and lived and studied abroad in different countries. We all grew up playing music. We all grew up doing sports. Like if there wasn't a system in place starting out as a child, then you couldn't even practice in the house because there needed to be a schedule around who was practicing what at what time. So we weren't overwhelming each other with the noise. I kind of grew up in that environment where there was just a necessity to have a system or a schedule or something, kind of a workflow. That just was ingrained in me as a young child. If that's not something that you've grown up with, honestly, I would just start with the simple motto of, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. And it takes time. This is one of the biggest things I teach in coaching, specifically to like newer agents kind of starting out. And then we go all the way into like time blocking and leveraging and figuring out how, what belongs to me and what can I delegate, what, things like that. But just starting out, it needs to be on your schedule. You need to define your office hours. You need to define when you're going to be doing your lead gen. If you're a dual career agent, which a lot of people are when they're starting out, everyone gets the same amount of time every single day. Some people do a lot with it and some people don't do very much with it. So really kind of just, even if it takes a week, take a week and really start kind of paying attention and jotting down, what am I doing with my time? What is an energy giver and what's an energy taker for me? How am I structuring it so that maybe there's days where Tuesday is a better day for doing the big chunk of your lead gen. So if you need to make, 50 to 100 contacts a week. Some people, it's easier if you spread it out the whole week. Some people, it's way easier if they go, okay, my lead gen days are Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm going to cut these 4 hours out on both of these days, and I'm just going to nail it. And I'm going to hit every single lever that I'm supposed to pull to get that lead gen done on those 2 days, because those 2 days are the days that I know that's going to take a lot of energy out of me. And then I'm done. And my other 3 days, it's follow up and whatever else I got to do with the business. Just tapping into that kind of stuff, I think, is super useful. Whether and you could be 10 years down the road in business and you're just hearing this for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh, wow, that makes a lot of sense, So yeah, I think just looking at that, if you're not used to systems in the first place, just take inventory. Take inventory of what you're doing. How much are you actually sleeping? How much are you actually awake? And when you're awake, how often are you doom scrolling on social media? Like, look at that type of stuff. Are you actually, when you're unplugging, are you actually unplugging and giving yourself a break? And I'm not perfect. I'm constantly evaluating and looking at my systems for this, but it's something that I teach and I encourage my clients to do as well.
I'm over here smiling because you're speaking my love language, and everybody who's been following this podcast for a long time, I'm assuming is also smiling, thinking, now I know why Erin brought this woman on the show, because, preach it, preach it. It's funny too, what you're saying, because I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and, obviously there needed to be some systems in place to be organized. But if I'm honest, that's not my forte, is systems and organization. And I thought in the early years that having systems was going to be suffocating. Like I, became self-employed because I wanted the freedom to do whatever I want. And then my results were a reflection of my lack of systems. And then later I realized that like having those systems is actually where liberation lies, because I love the Tuesday, Thursday sprints. I'm kind of a sprinter. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Fridays are for fun, family, and friends. Mondays are for me, mindset, marketing, planning, money management, marriage, all that kind of stuff. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like I sprint. And in that time, I mean, early on, you feel like you just want to keep running all day, every day until you get somewhere. And it's like most people are running in circles because they don't have a plan. So there's no way to measure the progress or the expectation of the effort and what it's going to lead to. So I love that you shared that, because I don't know that we've talked about that a lot here on the show, but I always say, a little bit of structure is liberating, because when you're done, you're done. And now you have permission to live the life you've imagined for yourself, instead of just being on this hamster wheel of never done, never enough hours in the day. It's like there are enough hours in the day. Otherwise, there wouldn't be people thriving and with ease at high levels in the same number of hours a day that you have. And yet they seem to be rested and at peace. And, over here, there's someone with their hair on fire and running a frenetic pace. And we're all operating with the same number of hours. So yeah, I love that. And I want to respect your time. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you, learn about your coaching programs, follow you online, where are the best ways to reach you?
Honestly, you can reach me through social media is probably the easiest, because I do answer my DMs in there just like I answer text messages. So my Instagram is my name, Ruth Laskowski, which hopefully will be in the notes because it's a mouthful. It's phonetic. So Ruth Laskowski on Facebook and Instagram. My email is exactly my name again at kw.com. So yeah, if you reach out on any of those platforms, I'm happy to book an intro call. Even if we just kind of take inventory together of what you got going on, I'd be happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ruth, for taking the time. I love all the wisdom you've shared today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So inspiring. And as always, to my friends listening, I love you. I appreciate you. If you are enjoying this content, make sure to leave that review so we can continue to help this content get found and attract these amazing guests. And if you've missed it, check out the Wednesday webinar, pursuingfreedom.com/Wednesday webinar, where I'm offering free trainings every 2 weeks on Wednesdays from 1:30 to 2:30 Mountain Time. And it's a blast. I look forward to seeing you there. Hope you make it a great day. We'll see you next time.